Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are on chapter 39, verse 43. We read this pasuk yesterday. Moshe Rabbeinu sees all the work by the Jewish people, and he blesses them. But it doesn't just say he blessed them. He said Moshe blessed them, even though it's obvious in the pasuk that we're talking about Moshe. Why does it say Moshe blessed them? So it's the second Or HaChaim on pasuk Mem Gimel. Vayvarech Osam Moshe. Tam shehutzrach lomer Moshe. The reason it's necessary to say Moshe blessed them, Lomar Lotia bracha kala beinecha. It's to teach us that we should not think lightly of this bracha, of this blessing. Ki Moshe ish Elokim barcham. That Moshe, the man of God, gave them a blessing, and what could be greater than that? V'davar gadol hodia kasav b'davar zeh. And the Torah is telling us a very major thing, that they got a bracha from Moshe. That's why it says he blessed them. If it weren't Moshe, we wouldn't have made a big deal that he was giving them the bracha. It's very interesting. So what the Or HaChaim is saying is, don't look at this pasuk and say, "Oh, that's so sweet. Moshe gave them a bracha. That's really considerate of him. How polite." It's actually much more than that. It's a bracha from as lofty an individual as Moshe Rabbeinu is a very substantive thing, and that's what the pasuk's telling us. I don't know if that comes out pro or not for Hasidic Rebbes and things like that. You could, depending on your inclination, you could argue one of either way. I know which way my father's arguing on this one, but you could look at it one of two ways. But it is a very interesting lesson. Okay, let's go on to chapter 40. Chapter 40, verse 1. Vaydaber Hashem Moshe limur. Hashem said to Moshe, "B'yom hachodesh harishon." On Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Takim es Mishkan Ol Moed. You should establish the Mishkan. I should mention, we speak a lot that our perspective on the calendar is that there's sort of special concepts within a given date, and it really speaks to this because the Mishkan was finished before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but God said, "Don't unveil the Mishkan, so to say, until Rosh Chodesh Nisan." And this presumably speaks to the idea that Nisan is a very special month for the Jewish people. Nisan, of course, is the month of the Exodus, of connection with God. So it's interesting. So God says to Moshe, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Takim, you should establish the Mishkan. Takim seems to be a very physical type of word. It's like to stand up. You do it on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, if you'll just indulge me for a second, skip ahead to verse 17, please. Verse 17. And it was on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Hukam HaMishkan. The Mishkan was established. So it doesn't say in the pasuk that Moshe established it. It says the Mishkan was established. So God told Moshe, "You establish it." Then it says the Mishkan was established. And then in verse 18 it says, Vayakam Moshe es HaMishkan. Moshe established the Mishkan, which seems extremely redundant because the previous phrase was the Mishkan was established. So if you wanted to be said that Moshe was the one who established the Mishkan, you should have done two for the price of one. And you should have just said at the end of verse 17, it should have said, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Moshe established the Mishkan. So we have three places in the span of about 18 psukim that talk about the establishment of the Mishkan, and each one is in a different form. One is God told Moshe, "You should establish it." One is the Mishkan was established, and one is Moshe established the Mishkan. So very interesting. What's going on? Kliyakar on pasuk base. There are three languages of establishment in the parsha. Echad, Takimas HaMishkan, Beis, Ukama Mishkan, Gimel, Vayakam Moshe. The three verses that we cited. V'yomer Razal, the rabbis teach, Shal Yisrael v'chochach mileiv, Mekimim es HaMishkan, v'lo yachol la'akimo. Famous medrash that the Jewish people and all the artisans tried to stand up the Mishkan. In other words, it was all these boards, but they kind of all had they're all interconnected. So you kind of have to stand it up all together, and nobody could figure out how to do it. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu, Asok Atah b'hakamaso, v'hu omed me'elav, shneimar hukam me'elav mashma. So God says to Moshe, you work on it on your own. You try, and if you try, I'll make it happen. God, will make it happen. So Medrash says that's the pshat in Hukam HaMishkan, that the Mishkan was established, because actually, it really wasn't Moshe that did it. It was really God miraculously made it occur, but it was because Moshe tried. Just before we even say anything more, that's such a powerful Medrash to think about how many concepts in life that apply to that. There are things that we say to ourselves, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I have the toolkit for this. I don't think I have the bandwidth for this. But I just have to try because no one else is going to do it. I just have to try my best. And I don't know if anyone else is more equipped to do it than I am. And that this idea that if a person tries, it could be that they're blessed, their efforts will be blessed by God. This idea of there's a language both of Moshe doing it and of it just happening on its own. There is an allusion in this to all actions which a person does. A person doesn't have the ability to see it to its completion. We have to begin. God brings the success at the end. Famous Gemara in Kedushin, that if not that God would help people overcome their evil inclinations, none of us would ever be able to overcome our evil inclination. But the idea is we have to try our best. And once we try our best, again, I think one of the most powerful mashalom to think about when we think about the Yetzer Hara is addiction. Imagine a person is grappling with addiction, and it's so difficult to stop something. It's so difficult, and yet there are so many successful people who have recovered from addictions. And how does someone do that? And again, these words are so powerful. A person has to really try. If a person really, really tries, they might just get divine assistance. That might be the only way to understand it. The Tziva Shetia Kamas HaMishkan Aydei Moshe Maskul Divrei HaMedrash Omer Shalom Nivra B'Schus Moshe Shneimar Bereishis Bara Elokim B'Schus Moshe Shneikar Reish Shneimar Vayarish Yislo. There's an interesting medrash. There's all these midrashim on the beginning of the parsha Bereishis Bara Elokim, which we translate at the beginning God created. But there's all these interesting midrashim, and one of the midrashim is Reishis is reference to Moshe. God created the world with Moshe in mind. It's as if the world exists because of Moshe, and similarly, Mishkan Moshe. So too the Mishkan that's built. The Mishkan is sort of like this core component of the world. It's established through Moshe. Moshe Bereshis bara ha'olam kach b'yom ha'chodesh harishon hukam ha'mishkan. Okay. Skipping a few lines. B'shlosha kamos elu amru mitzvos mefarshim sheneged shlosha mikdashim. There's a whole other pshat in the three languages of establishing that it parallels the three temples. V'yeshli k'mus ra'il d'vreim ki mikdash rishon v'sheni ha'yitzulim b'schusim shel Yisrael ki mitoch ha'schus v'atshuva zachu l'binyan zeh. Both of the first two temples were built in the merit of the Jewish people. The Jewish people had gotten to the point that they deserved a Mishkan. Okay, Nemar Takim Vayakim. That's why there's two languages here of Moshe establishing, because two of the Batei Mikdash, two of the temples were in the merit of the conduct of Klal Yisrael. Any Tali B'schus. But the third temple, the final temple, the one we're waiting for, even though we can bring it quicker if we merit it, but there's an idea that there'll be a certain time that even if we don't merit it, God will bring it anyway. Even if the people aren't so up to snuff, ultimately the redemption will come. So it's possible then that it will come sort of on its own. Therefore, it says hukam. It was established on its own. So this is a nice idea from the Kli Yakar. Okay. I want to see the Ramban for a moment because I think this is something that someone asked about at some point or another. Verse 20. So now we're talking about setting up the Mishkan. Vayikach, vayitenes hoidus el ha'aron. So Moshe put the testimony in the Aron, meaning he took the luchos, he took the second tablets, and he put them in this beautiful Aron that had been created in honor of the Mishkan. Somebody asked at some point, I don't remember who and I don't remember when, what did they do with the luchos before this? Somebody asked that at some point. So if you look at the Ramban on Pasuk Chaf, Vayikach vayitenes hoidus, shelokach haluchos me'eretz eitz shahayu sham b'soch o Moshe me'aron eitz. Excuse me. There was some wooden cabinet that was in Moshe's tent, and that's where the luchos were kept. V'hevio samel Mishkan. And now he brings them to the Mishkan, to the special Aron. So I just wanted to share that Ramban because I think it answers the question. Okay, let's just go back now to verse 19. I want to make sure to catch that Ramban. This is still what Moshe is doing. So after he stood up the different boards of the Mishkan, he spread the curtains, the different fabric material over the top of the Mishkan. You put the covering over that. Kasher tzivo Hashem es Moshe, as Hashem commanded Moshe. This is strange because the person doing the action in the verse is Moshe. And then it says at the end, he did it. This is like God commanded Moshe. It should be like God commanded. That's what it's obvious. First of all, we know God commanded Moshe, but it should. But it's just very redundant. Orach Chaim of Pasuk Chutzrach Lomer es Moshe. Why didn't it just say as God commanded? Of course, we know that Moshe was the one God commanded. The intent of the verse is to teach the Torah is telling us that his act was exactly as he was commanded. V'shir omro kasher hu al kufo shel maseh. V'maya omer kasher tzivo Hashem hayibenishma shechozer al ha'oseh she'asa kasher tzivohu. So it's a little bit tricky, but basically the Orach Chaim is saying that if it would say that he did it like God commanded, it might have meant like he followed the instructions of God. Like, check, God, I did what you told me to build the Mishkan, I built the Mishkan. By saying Kasher Tzivo Hashem es Moshe, the like is not on his doing it, the like is on what he did. Meaning, he did it exactly as God commanded. Because lest you think that the like was commanded is going on him, then it's redundant to say Moshe at the end. So therefore, we're describing the detail. Every single detail was exactly as God instructed. So we discussed the Orach Chaim this morning about the unique nature of Moshe blessing them and the Torah emphasizing that. We discussed the Kli Yakar about perspectives on the different times it talks about the Moshe establishing the Mishkan and the Mishkan being established. We discussed the Ramban regarding what they do with the tablets before the Mishkan, and we discussed the Orach Chaim regarding this Kasher Tzivo Hashem es Moshe.